If you were to ask someone what movies have had a big influence on the median, you probably would get such answers as Jaws, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Iron Man, and The Dark Knight, all of which broke countless box office records, shattered expectations of what their genre could be, and spawned countless sequels or franchises. Two of which, Iron Man and The Dark Knight, not only did one single-handedly jumpstart the biggest multimedia franchise, but the other showed that the superhero genre could be Oscar-worthy.
And the Oscar goes to Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight.
But there's one movie that came out that same year, in between Iron Man and The Dark Knight. It didn't spawn a franchise. It landed in third place at its opening weekend box office, and didn't even come close to breaking even. Critics weren't any nicer to it, with the majority calling it an overly long, downright boring story with a paper-thin plot, and it was a mess and failure in nearly every department. That movie is my favorite of all time, Speed Racer. But before we discuss the 2008 film, it's important to know what Speed Racer originally was.
Here comes Speed Racer, he's a demon on wheels.
Speed Racer was originally an anime from the 1960s. More commonly known as the dinosaur years. The show is about the main character Gomufume, or Speed Racer. He's an 18-year-old kid obsessed with racing and being the best driver in the world, all at the while of thwarting attempts of assassins, crime bosses, criminals, terrorists, or cheaters in the automobile races. The vehicle he drives is the Mach 5. It's a souped-up beast of a car able to do special moves such as jump over objects with its jump jacks or blaze through trees with the use of buzzsaws. The car is as recognizable as the protagonist and has been engraved into pop culture, making cameos and even being parodied in such shows as Dexter's Laboratory, Futurama, Foster's Home, and even Ready Player One.
We've been waiting for you, Speed Racer. Huh? We've been waiting patiently for you to come along so that we can get that precious pineapple out of your car.
But what's a main protagonist without some friends? You have Mother Racer, Pops Racer, Speed's girlfriend Trixie, the younger brother of the family Spritle, Sprite's best friend and the family pet chimpanzee Chim Chim,
Monkey!
Speed's best friend and mechanic Sparky, and finally Racer X, who,
unknown to Speed, this is his older brother Rex, who ran away from home years ago.
With all these characters and fun vehicle races, it all adds up for a very entertaining watch. Just be warned, its American dub is not the best. This is where bad dubbing comes from. Since it was one of the first animes to get dubbed, it suffers from a lot of the actors trying to catch up to their characters' lips. So it's either super fast talking with no pauses.
Robot camera to spy on the mammoth car.
Huh?
Hey, better get rid of him. Now listen to me. You
Wait.
gotta stay in the race because
Wait.
it's the only way you'll be
Slow
able
down.
to carry that 50
Slow
million
down.
bucks in gold
Slow
bars.
down. Watching Speed Racer is like waiting for the perfect opportunity to bid.
You bought him.
Or, when they're not talking at supersonic speeds, they're usually interrupting each other constantly.
I want to give it to Pop so he can build a super engine.
I get it, Speed, but they told him at the factory the engine wouldn't work.
I want Pops to build the
I
engine.
know how you
Sparky.
feel, Speed.
None of this sounds very entertaining, but it is, trust me. You have an episode about Speed entering the Pineapple Grand Prix. You have a car with a brain, giant spiders. A man with a crippled arm drives on 2 wheels. Someone builds a copy of the Mach 5, but it flies. They race a vehicle that's over 200 yards long, and it's made of solid gold. This is the greatest show ever conceived.
Oh, this is beautiful.
But alas, the show finally ended in March of 1968. Flash forward 20 years later, and in September of 1992, Warner Brothers finally acquired the rights to make a live-action adaptation.
Now don't be scared.
But I am.
This is no time to act like a girl, Trixie.
Okay.
For nearly 12 years, Warner Brothers tried to get an adaptation off the ground, coming very close sometimes. They had so many different people coming and going from the project, even having at one point Johnny Depp cast as Speed, and J.J. Abrams was working on it at some point. Which, I don't know, Johnny Depp may have been good. I could see that. But thank you, J.J. Abrams didn't work on it.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
But finally, after countless writers and directors would come and go, 2006 rolls around, and the Wachowskis were brought on board. They were coming fresh off of directing the Matrix trilogy and also writing V for Vendetta. Kind of a weird choice to have a directing duo known for their dark, R-rated movies to do a kids film, right? But they were up for the challenge of it, being fellow fans of the show and wanting to reach a broader audience after their last films had all been rated R. With the director set, it was now time to find the cast of Speed Racer. With casting for a live-action interpretation of a character, it can be a challenge. Not only do you have to keep in mind the voice of these characters, but also the body language now and appearance. It can be a tough decision. Go too far with the look of the cartoon and you can alienate a good portion of the audience that has no idea what's happening or who these characters even are. Also, it can look like a bad cosplay. But if they don't have enough of the specific features or look from the original, it's a slap in the face to fans who've been there since the beginning. There was a reason why people were debating when Will Smith was cast as the Genie or when Robert Pattinson was announced to be the new Batman.
He's going over that cliff! Ah!
But I'm not saying that there's never been a good live-action casting choice. I think Emma Watson and Lily James were perfect choices for their Disney princesses. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, and I'll even put Kenan Thompson as Fat Albert. Personally, I think that the new live-action One Piece and Last Airbender have a good chance. What? If the filmmakers embrace what the original show did. With the cast of Speed Racer though, in my opinion they had it easier than other adaptations. With anime adaptations specifically, there's this challenge that the filmmakers have. In a lot of different shows there can be a lot of detail, whether it be to the world, the characters, or even when those characters express emotion. There can be a lot of spectacle involved in that. Most don't have something to build off of because they're already so full of detail and feel fully fleshed out. Filmmakers have to keep these in mind when casting for their adaptation, all at the while of remaining to what I said earlier about the look and feel of the character. But in my opinion, Speed Racer is just one of those shows where it feels like there's a lot more you can build off of. For instance, let's take the animation. The animation is good, it's just a bit to be desired though. It's simple enough where you can still inject some flavor in there without having to ruin what it was. The characters are the same way. They don't feel fully fleshed out in my opinion. They mostly feel one-dimensional. The casting for this is perfect in my opinion. You have Emile Hirsch as Speed, John Goodman as Pops Racer, Susan Sarandon as Mom Racer, Matthew Fox as Racer X, and Christina Ricci as Trixie. It's really mind-boggling how this cast even happened. These are big names in their own way, whether it be from movies, TV, or even theater. All of these characters not only look and feel like the original anime, but they build off of what was known. And while some characters do act different, it's a good difference. For instance with Speed. In the original show, he would pout or sometimes show no empathy for his family or others. In this one, he's upgraded to be more likable and a much more humbler protagonist.
Oh, you'll have enough money to enter the multi-peak race. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, Speed, we're all so proud of you for what you've done.
If you've watched the show also, you know that the mother isn't really that big of a character. And if I'm being honest, neither is Pop. Mom and Pop were usually there just to tell Spritle to settle down or maybe nag Speed about entering or not entering a race. There may have been a few plots tied to Pop, but other than that, they weren't featured that much. They're upgraded here to be more mentors for Speed, with Pops being more concerned for Speed's safety, because he ran Speed's older brother out of the family and regrets that. The mom also has a really heartwarming scene where she reassures Speed and tells him how proud she is to be his mother, and that every time he drives, even though she's scared to death,
And you just took my breath away.
Matthew Fox's Racer X is awesome in this movie. Every single scene that he's in, he just absolutely owns it. There's something about every single shot that the Wachowskis shoot with him that just oozes mystery and personality behind that mask. Also, Warner Brothers. Finally though, we come to two characters that not a lot of people enjoy in this. Both Spritle and Chim Chim. I love them though in this.
I don't think it's funny.
I will say, it's not for everybody. One second you're getting yelled at by the antagonist of the movie, to a quick cut of Spritle going absolutely nuts.
Out that window, there isn't a single plane or helicopter or K-Harrier that isn't powered by iodine fuel cells. That's what racing is about. It has nothing to do with cars or drivers. All that matters is power and the unassailable might of money.
The reason I like it so much is it's because it's an accurate adaptation from the source. This, in my opinion, truly shows that the Wachowskis wanted to do the original show justice. They never took it too seriously. It's just a kid and a family pet that get into trouble. Nothing more, nothing less. They give the movie personality and more humor, in my opinion. So, yeah, every character here adds something to the story. No one gets left out. Every single one of them has a moment where their actions and choices and motivations forward the story or the main protagonist. It's never where the story forwards the characters. With a movie though, you can have the most amazing cast ever assembled, but that doesn't mean anything if the story in the movie itself isn't good.
It is a very good movie.
When you first start the movie, you're going to notice two unique details about it. First are the transitions. The way this film moves about from scene to scene is absolutely amazing. You either have people's faces whisking by, or the camera whooshes by to give the effect of a one-shot take. This adds to the film in such a great way because it feels like you're never getting ripped away from a scene. The second thing you're going to realize is how flat this movie looks. And I don't mean that in a way of the colors don't pop. I'm talking about dimension. Usually with film, backgrounds are backgrounds. They may be a bit blurred so that the focus is on what's in the foreground. It's because the focus is on the characters and not what's behind them. With Speed Racer though, they wanted to create the feel of what it's like with hand-drawn animation. So for instance with the original anime, it's got this very flat look. Anytime the focus is on something, you still have the backgrounds with the same detail as the characters in the foreground, giving it a very flat 2D look. That's what they wanted to accomplish here. And I think they really did. There's a great scene in this movie where two characters are talking. Not only is their faces transitioning the camera angles, but also the backgrounds is in the full focus as I said before. This looks like it was ripped straight out of an animation still.
As the tank reached the lake, a bridge came out of the water. And before the bridge could be lowered into the water again, I started across. But I found myself in a land of gorillas.
The movie starts with some of the most engaging and entertaining 15 minutes period. Not only do you get this really cool adrenaline pumping race to start, but you're introduced to every single character, who they are, what their motivations are, all the while zipping by at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And these races. They're basically Mario Kart 8 tracks mixed with the acceleracers, and then dial it up to 10. Don't believe me? Watch this.
Not this time, Sparky.
With the races, a lot of similar complaints I hear about this are that the editing of them is messy and just a bit too fast. And yeah, I do think that there should be a few more longer takes, but when I watch these races, I've never had to question myself, okay, so where's this guy in relativity to this guy? The editing can be quick cuts, but it's never messy enough where you don't know where these characters are in relativity to one another. There's one more thing to classify though in this movie before we move on. The cars. The cars in this movie look incredible, but they're classified in two separate ways. You have your traditional street cars, which is basically the Mach 5 and Racer X's Shooting Star, but you also have the cars that are used in these over-the-top races. Basically, that's what the Mach 6 is designed for. And while I know nothing about film, the one thing I appreciate that they did was they still kept Speed Racer's car simplistic compared to all the others. So in the beginning, when it's introducing you to this world, it can be a little confusing, but you still know who Speed Racer is because his car shines out the brightest than all the other cars. So Speed in the beginning wins a race by coming close to shattering the record set by his previous older brother, Rex Racer, who we learned died in a tragic accident after leaving the family. Speed's father, Pops, has always carried this burden of Rex's death because before he left, they've had an argument. The race, as I said before, is fantastic. But the reason it's so fantastic is near the end, Speed quite literally races the ghost of his brother. It's both sad and poetic. Due to Speed's driving skills now displayed at Thunderhead, many racing teams want to strike an alliance now with the Racer family, who've been operating under their own independent team. But right when the family sits for breakfast...
What the?
A man named Mr. Royalton shows up, who just casually parks his plane? On the front lawn. When he's sitting down for breakfast with them, he compares himself to their company, and how even though he's a big corporate company, he started out like them as an independent. He welcomes them to his company to show him around and introduce him to other drivers who race for him, such as
Two-time Grand Prix winner, 5-time WRL champion, and future Hall of Famer, Jack Cannonball Taylor.
All seems well, till Royalton starts to get a little pushy, wanting a deal right here and now.
You think that maybe there's something that could work out here?
But he calls it off for next week, as Speed and his family are reluctant to sign a deal.
Think about what you saw and heard here, and we'll get together early next week. Deal?
We then cut over to a new character, Taejo, who is a completely new character that is not from the original anime. He's a race car driver that's been forced to lose races recently by the mob boss Cruncher Block, who's actually from the original anime. As Taejo is getting tortured, they get interrupted by one of the coolest introductions to a character ever.
Gotcha.
Racer X.
Are you my brother? Are you my brother, Rex Racer?
In this kind of interpretation of the character, he's now a secret agent, kinda like the comic series. A gunfight ensues with some really cool POV shots. Block realizes he's outmatched, so he throws Taejo out with Racer X saving him. We then cut over to Speed and Trixie enjoying a romantic evening, and believe it or not, this is new. Besides the couple of scenes of her getting jealous, we never do see Speed and Trixie share romantic moments in the original anime. Here, them being a couple is a lot more believable with the chemistry and the screen time they share. Another callback happens is when Spritle and Chim Chim are caught in the trunk of the Mach 5. In the original, this was a thing that happened almost every time Speed was in a race, so it's a really great welcome decision here to show it. So next week happens, and Speed makes the decision regarding Royalton. He tells him that racing is everything to him and his family. It's basically a religion to him. And that while he appreciates the offer, the deal's just not for him and his family. What then happens is one of the best scenes in the entire movie.
You poor naive chump.
I really have to applaud Roger Allam's acting here. He starts out so warm and friendly, but changes with the drop of a pin. Royalton throws everything back at his face. Racing isn't about the love of the sport, it's about money and stocks. Racing has been rigged for the last several years, with people knowing who the winner will be every Grand Prix for the last 50 years. What's so great about this scene, in my opinion, is that you, the audience, is Speed in this situation. You believe the races are legitimate. and that whoever comes in first was the winner fair and square. The only terms of racing we're familiar with are the racers. So not only is this throwing Speed for a loop and leaving him confused, it is for us too. Another race ensues at the Fuji Alexicon. I really enjoyed this race too. There's a really excellent scene in the beginning when Speed's going through loop-de-loops and then it slowly transitions into all these other ways. If I had to make a complaint about it though, it's mostly the lighting. With every single other race, there's at least one thing that masks the cars to give it that extra level of detail, and it still holds up today. This is the only race I would say that doesn't, but it doesn't go as Speed plans, rather what Royalton wants. With the fallout being the Mach 6 destroyed, and the racers sued and are now stuck in allegations against Pop's designs. This leaves Speed lost and confused. He starts to think that what Royalton believes about racing is true, but then his mother reassures him of his actions. That his racing is a form of art, and that it's beautiful, and that she's so impressively proud of him. We then cut over to Inspector Detector and Racer X at the door. And Wachowski's everything in this film is fantastic. But where is Inspector Detector's beard?
Look out!
They then tell the Racer family that Royalton has been fixing races and cheating in them for years. And while Interpol has known about it, there's just not enough evidence to convict him. Taejo, though, says he has a file that can connect Cruncher Block to Royalton, and that can put him behind bars for the rest of his life. The only problem is he wants Speed and Racer X on his team in an upcoming race, the one that killed Speed's brother.
Casa Cristo.
What?
Pops obviously refuses, wanting nothing to do with it, but then Speed and Trixie discuss later about the situation, agreeing to go behind everyone's back. With this race, this was more of what the original show was. Back alley, rugged cross-country racing. But because this race is full of cheaters, they have to modify Speed's car, the Mach 5, with some defensive modifications. And while some of them were changed from the original show, in my opinion, it's just not that big of a deal as some others have made it out to be. They at least keep the ones that most people will remember while making the new ones just as cool. And I actually really like this. In the original show, they gave no reason as to why a car would need saw blades, or even the underwater scope. They came in use, but it was never really explained. Here it makes sense because they're installed at a time when he would use them. Plus, if I can highlight, there's the classic costume, and it actually looks really good in live action. During the race though, you learn that Cruncher Block has hired a number of ridiculous drivers to drive for him. Like Vikings? All with the sole purpose of taking out Speed Racer's team. Throughout all the teamwork though that they share in the race, Speed begins to then think that Racer X is secretly his brother Rex. With all this going on though, Spritle has been watching the race, but eventually gets caught by Pop, with both finding out that Speed has entered it. The family comes, obviously angry that they both entered the race without their knowledge. Pops and Speed fight about it, with Speed wanting to finish the race, but Pops keeps saying that he'll just end up like his brother if he continues. Finally though, the mother steps in, and she says they're gonna stay and help out if they are. As night passes and the drivers are all sleeping, Cruncher then sends in ninja assassins to drug the drivers so that they're out of the race. Each driver fights a ninja. Everything about this is hilariously over the top and just plain entertaining. And they're also really well shot and coordinated as well. Plus, you get monkey action. One little detail that they snuck in here from the anime is that Pops was a wrestler before being a car designer. It snuck in just enough for those original fans, but it's also enough for the general audience to not question why Pops can swing a man.
I'm gonna try something.
So Pops disposes of the ninjas, and, you know, usually when that happens, you got a cool catchphrase to deal with it.
Oh my god, was that a ninja?
More like a nanja.
Speed gets word from Taejo's sister that he's beyond capable of driving and got severely drugged. So they have Trixie disguise herself and take his place in the race. Just for the start of it though. I have to say though, this is one of my favorite shots in the movie, with them drifting up the mountain and the camera zipping by. They basically do this so that they can pull an Uno reverse on Cruncher Block and capture him. But right when they do, his goons come in showing their Uno reverse. But Spritle and Chim Chim were secretly in Speed's trunk this whole time, pulling out their reverse card with a distraction. They all start fighting, and hey, look at that. They have speed lines. Usually with anime, that's how they show the force of motion. They have speed lines, so if usually someone is going super fast or throws a punch, this is usually how it looks. And here, it's done so naturally in the live action state. It just starts snowing, and then the snow transitions into those white speed lines, and it's just mwah. It's done so beautifully. So they end up thwarting their attempts and capturing Block. At this time though, the drug has worn off finally on Taejo, where he can finally now race. And at this time, they're at the part of the track where Speed's brother wrecked. This throws Speed off a little bit, causing the opposing drivers to slick the track with oil, causing my favorite scene in the whole film. This is how I know the Wachowskis were fans of the show. Oh, it's just so good. Come on, critics. 41%? 41? So, Speed and the team successfully come in first place. And hey, look at that, it's the original pose. We then find out, because of this win, that the leader, Taejo, received an invitation to go to the Grand Prix next week.
Hold it! Load my car, the Black Tiger, on board the ship first.
Once the racers return home, though, it's not good. They learn that Taejo tricked everybody. Winning the race caused his company to skyrocket in value. This was all planned so that when Royalton went to purchase their company, they would profit even more. Speed, obviously ticked off now, goes to the track to clear his mind and blow off some steam. Racer X shows up to talk to him to see if he's alright, but with Speed still being mad at the situation, throws it right back at him, asking if he's his dead brother Rex, causing Speed to see it's not Rex.
You're not Rex.
Confused and crushed, Speed gets reassured by Racer X though, and helps him to realize that racing shouldn't change who he is, but to figure out his own driving and the reason for it. Speed returns home to plan on leaving, but Pop sits his son down this time, unlike with Rex. He tells his son how proud he is of him, that he loves him, and that he was wrong about Casa Cristo. They talk a little more, saying that even if Speed walks out the door will always be open for him. While talking though, they get interrupted by Taejo's sister who's at the door. She apologizes for her brother's actions, and then gives him Taejo's rejected invitation to the Grand Prix. The only problem with this is they don't have a car. Remember, the Mach 6 was wrecked, and the Mach 5 really isn't made for the track races. So the whole family comes together and builds a new and improved Mach 6, with Royalton at the same time buying up most of the stocks in Taejo's company. Speed then enters the Grand Prix in one of the most exciting and colorful finales to a movie ever put to screen. It's so exciting, everyone is thrown off when he enters, mostly because he's the wild card in his race. He's not paid off to lose or come in a specific place. Remember this guy? Well, this guy was the one that's stationed to win this thing. But because of Speed's last-minute entrance in the race, not only does Royalton have to put $1 million bounty on Speed's head, but he also installs a cheating device in Royalton's car as a precaution called a spear hook. So the race begins, but because of the bounty, nearly every single car on the track is after Speed Racer, with some really cool destruction being caused. Eventually though, he catches up to Cannonball, and is close to even taking him out, till Cannonball uses the spear hook. So as it looks as Speed's gonna be stuck for the rest of the race, some cameras actually are coming up. So Speed uses his jump jacks to expose the cheating device, causing Cannonball to crash and exposing Royalton as the cheater that he is. The only problem with this is that now the Mach 6 is out of commission.
No, don't do this!
And right when you think the excitement is lowered, the Wachowskis jump-started. With one of the coolest drift shots ever. Everything about the final 5 minutes of this is so breathtakingly colorful. Everything comes tied together in a neat little bow, as Speed reflects on every person that has helped or motivated him to this moment. It's simply breathtaking. So Speed wins, obviously, blowing everybody out of the water. He gets smoochies from Trixie, Chim Chim gets a PhD, Tejo testifies against Royalton, putting him behind bars. But with that, it's not all good endings. With Racer X, yes, it turns out he is Speed's long-dead brother. The only thing is, in this, he got plastic surgery. But instead of going to his family and celebrating revealing to be his brother, he chooses to live with the mistake he made and keep them from harm's way. As the credits roll nearly every time, I always have the dumbest smile on my face. The Wachowskis had accomplished something that many other directors and studios have tried to do with live-action adaptations. They made the adaptation better than the source material. The original show, it'll always be special. But Speed Racer is the movie that the show wishes it was. It takes everything from the original, fleshes it out in every aspect, and makes it perfect. And I mean, I could talk more about Easter eggs. I mean, you have Red Sox, GRX's, Snake Oiler. Prince Kabbalah was in this. You have Trixie's helicopter, the Mammoth car. The Mach 4 basically being the car that Rex wrecked in the original. The original voice actors are actually in this as cameos. I mean, there's just so much to unpack here. The soundtrack is actually really amazing. There's a reason I have the limited edition vinyl of it. But if you're still here, that probably means you're asking yourself, why would this fail? There are constant movies that get horrible reviews, but can make over $500 million at the box office. There's not really a singular reason, but my hypothesis is this. Let's take some random movie choices. Let's say Iron Man, Prince Caspian, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Panda, Incredible Hulk, The Dark Knight, Madagascar, Rambo, Twilight, Cloverfield, James Bond, Here's a Taken, Bolt, Hancock. Seems random, right? Nope. These all released the same year. And guess what? Poor little Speed Racer was squashed right between Iron Man, Prince Caspian, and Crystal Skull. And those three went on to be in the top 10 grossing of that year. It didn't have a chance. It got lost to all the other big movies. It just kind of came and went. I would have put it more at a time for the fall or winter release. At that time, all the heavy hitters were out of the way. The only big movie that released was Benjamin Button. They could have snagged that opportunity of time when none of the other studios had something. But maybe you're saying this film wasn't marketed because the other films made such a killing. But that would be ridiculous. My most hyped movies for that year was Iron Man, Speed Racer, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And to be honest, the only movie I really remember being advertised was this one. There was McDonald's toy tie-ins, Legos, wall stickers, notepads, books, Hot Wheels, video games, and I ate it all up. I collected nearly everything for this movie. You name it, I had it. While I used to have every one of the Hot Wheels, I can't find the majority of mine now, but this is what remains. And these were pretty fun. You could usually get like a track with them or something. I remember you would get plastic jump jacks or chainsaws with them and you could stick them under the car. But these have a really good build quality in my opinion. I mean, for $2, I mean, they look pretty nice. I actually still have my copies of the Wii into DS game. The only thing is, I bought the DS one secondhand, so I have Ethan to thank for this. And I'll let you in on a secret. They're not bad. They're sort of a mix between F-Zero and a fighting game. It's very underrated and overlooked in my opinion. If you're a big fan of the movie, give them a playthrough. And you know what? I wouldn't mind a modern remake or port of it. The only thing they would have to add is the online multiplayer. But if I can speak frankly, I'm glad this movie is now getting the attention it deserves. Calling this film underrated isn't even close to the full truth. It deserves another chance entirely. I'm hoping that Warner Bros. Releases a 4K edition soon with how much traction that the film has been gaining. I mean, Warner Bros., if you can do a 4K edition of Batman and Robin, you can do Speed Racer. But don't you dare make a sequel. I really don't want there to be another Pacific Rim Uprising situation again.
They fly now?
But seriously, if you haven't seen this movie, go watch it. I can't recommend it enough. Man, I've been talking about Speed Racer for a while now. What time is it? That's interesting. It's a full moon out tonight.
Full moon? This can only mean... Uh-oh.
Look at that thing. Nature is amazing.